If you have ever done a simulation in Houdini, you have probably used constraints. They are used in destruction, cloth, or crowds, to name a few. The goal of this video is to give you a conceptual understanding of constraints. There are many types of constraints in Houdini, but they all follow the same principles. Because of that, throughout this video, I'll focus on the hard constraint, which is perhaps the best constraint to teach you the basic concepts. To get started, let's take a look at a straightforward example, a two-dimensional rectangle. What kind of transformations can you do without stretching or squeezing the rectangle? Well, you can move it horizontally, vertically, and rotate it. Each of those transformations gives you a single degree of freedom. Horizontal translation is the first one, vertical translation is the second one, and rotation is the third one. If you pin this rectangle, you can no longer translate it on the vertical or horizontal axis. The only thing left to do is to rotate it around the pin. By doing this, we have essentially constrained its motion to a single degree of freedom. Even more interestingly, with two additional pins, you can also limit its rotation to some interval of angles, in this case from 0 to 90 degrees. Constraints like this are often called unary, because you're constraining a single rigid body, but you might also use binary constraints. With two rectangles on a plane, each of them has 3 degrees of freedom, so in total they have 6 degrees of freedom. With a toothpick and modeling clay, you can create a simple constraint. Notice that if I do any transformation to the first rectangle, the transformation of the second one is completely determined. The same thing holds the other way around. By doing this, we have reduced the degrees of freedom of those two rectangles from 6 to 3. By the way, if you have ever used glue constraints in Houdini, it behaves very similar to this, at least until it breaks. Now let's move to 3D. To get started, try to pause the video and think about how many degrees of freedom you have when you're transforming a rigid body in 3 dimensions. You can imagine 3 axes in 3D space, and the transformations you can do are translations along those axes and rotations around those axes. An interesting example of a constrained object you encounter daily is a door. Most doors use hinges. Hinges constrain motion in such a way that they only allow you to rotate the object around a single axis, and usually also limit the rotation around that axis to some interval of angles. In Houdini, we have a hinge constraint, which can do exactly this. But you might also encounter a door that uses a different kind of mechanism. It can slide along a single axis. Once again, Houdini offers a slider constraint that can model exactly this. Constraints in Houdini are an abstraction that is designed to address problems like this. The way I like to think about it is that each kind of constraint in Houdini was created because someone observed a constrained motion and wanted to make a simulation that behaves just like what they saw. In Houdini, constraints appear in many contexts, but to keep this video reasonably long, I'll focus on rigid body simulations and especially the hard constraint. To get started, let's create a pendulum. I will start with this setup. I have made a cube, moved it 2 units along the x-axis, packed it, and assigned a string attribute called name with the value cube to the packed geometry so that the rigid body solver can reference it by its name. I have wired this to the first input of a DOP network. Inside the DOP network, I have created an RBD packed object, selected the first context input to import our cube. I have wired this to the rigid body solver and added a gravity force. When I play this simulation, you can probably tell that the cube will just fall. Now the question is, how do you make it behave like a pendulum? When you think about the construction of a pendulum, you essentially have a string that connects a point on a bob, which in our case is a cube, to some fixed point in space. In Houdini, you can model the string simply by creating a polyline between the origin and some point on the cube. In the context of constraints, you would call those points anchors and the polyline a constraint. But so far, there isn't enough information to make this constraint work. You need to tell Houdini that the point 0 is referencing to some fixed point in the world coordinates, and the second point is referencing a point on the cube. To do that, you have to add a string name attribute cube to the point 1, because that is the name of our packed cube, and you have to add an empty string to the point 0, which is Houdini convention to reference the anchor in word coordinates. The second thing we need to specify is how far apart the origin and our point on the cube are. You can specify this with the resLength float attribute on the constraint, which tells the solver how far apart anchors should stay. In this case, it is 1.5. Now, there's still one last thing missing. We need to name our constraint. To name a constraint, we have to use the constraint name string attribute. And you can use pretty much any string value that you want. But in this case, I will call it string because that is what it means semantically to us. However, it is important to note that in most cases, if you have multiple constraints, the names usually won't be all unique. The constraint name attribute is designed to separate the semantics of different constraints. For instance, you might be using weak and strong glue in your simulation. So you could add constraint name weak to the first set of constraints and constraint name strong to the second set of constraints. Now let's see how you can make Houdini recognize our constraint. First of all, I have created a polyline with exactly the attributes I have outlined. I am piping the constraint to the second input of our DOP network. Inside the DOP network, you have to create two nodes. A constraint network, where I set the source to the second input geometry, and a hard constraint relationship node, where I set the data name to string, because that is the name of our constraint. In a minute, I will explain a bit more about the hard constraint, but for now, let us focus on its behavior. When I play this simulation, you can clearly see that it behaves very much like a real pendulum. When you open the properties of the hard constraint and the guide options tab, you can change the visualization of your constraint. However, since we are in Houdini, you can probably figure that we can access much more information about the constraint. In your geometry spreadsheet, inside the relationships dropdown, you can get down to the geometry of the constraints, where you can see a lot of additional information about your constraints and their current state. To get back to our degrees of freedom point of view, what we have really done is that we have constrained our rigid body to 3 degrees of freedom. To better see this, I will add a bit of initial velocity to our cube so that you can see that it essentially can do 3 distinct types of rotation. The reason why it constrained translation but not rotation is a convention used in Houdini. On the primitive representing our constraint, you can specify a string attribute called constraint type, which can be either position, rotation, or all. If you don't add this attribute, the default behavior is set to position. Okay, so to explain what I promised, let's take a look at how the hard constraint works. For this, I have created an example of 2 cubes being connected by a positional constraint whose resLength is 1. Note that the behavior of hard constraint depends on the number of substeps. In Houdini 21, the default for the rigid body solver is 10. I've changed that to 1 so that we can see exactly what is happening. Our constraint at any given time has some length. In this case, initially it is 4. Our resLength is 1, which means that we want the solver to keep the length of our constraint at 1. Since the current length is 4 and the desired length is 1, the error is 4 minus 1, which is 3. Hard constraint relationship has an error reduction parameter, in short ERP. I will set it to 0.1 and let's observe what happens. You can see that after a single iteration, the error is 2.7. After 2 iterations, it is 2.43, and so on. There is a clear pattern to this. The constraint solver tries to decrease the error by 10% at each time step. If you increase the ERP, it reduces the error faster. If you have ever studied calculus, you can probably tell that the error won't converge to 0 after a finite number of iterations. But that isn't so big of a problem in practice because Houdini works with floating point arithmetic, which is finite. But what can be a much bigger issue than the lack of convergence in such simple situations are conflicting constraints. First, let's take a look at this example where I've set resLength of all constraints to 2. After a few iterations, the sum of errors gets close to 0 because the constraints we have aren't conflicting. However, let's now do something vile. I will add additional constraint and set its res length to 10. When I run the simulation, the sum of errors doesn't really go to 0 as the number of iterations increases. That is simply because there isn't any configuration that would satisfy all of the constraints. You likely won't encounter extreme instability in practice, but if your constraints jitter a lot, it is a good idea to look at whether the thing that you're forcing with them is actually possible. Let's return to our pendulum example. You saw that it constrained motion to 3 degrees of freedom, but what if we wanted to also limit its rotation around the constraint axis? Well, we cannot simply set the constraint type to all, because that would leave us with 0 degrees of freedom and no motion would be allowed. Lucky for us, Houdini allows you to explicitly state which degrees of freedom should be limited. This is described on the constraint network documentation page, but it might be a bit tricky to get your head around it. So let's go through 2 examples. First, let's prevent the pendulum from rotating around the axis of the constraint. In this case, I will create 2 identical polygonal lines that will differ in their parameters. Here, it is important that those 2 really don't share any points, it wouldn't work otherwise. You can write a comment on why it is the case. The first primitive will be made up of points 0 and 1, where point 0 has empty string as a name and point 1 has cube as a name. Similarly, the second primitive will be made up of points 2 and 3, where point 2 has empty string as its name and point 3 has cube as its name. The first difference will be that we will set constraint type of the first primitive to position, and for the second we will set it to rotation. If you run the simulation now, nothing interesting really happens, because we have constrained all 6 degrees of freedom, so we're forcing the cube to stay in place. Now to fix this, we'll have to add 2 additional parameters to our anchors. The first parameter is called condof, which specifies how many degrees of freedom you want to constrain. For the positional constraint, we want to constrain all 3 degrees of freedom. For rotation, we want to constrain only 1. For the positional constraint, there is nothing else we need to specify. But for the rotational constraint, you must tell the solver which axis you want to constrain. You can do this by specifying a condir vector attribute. I will set it to 1, 0, 0, which is the axis connecting the origin and our cube. When I play the animation again, there isn't any rotation around the constraint axis. However, you might notice that the simulation behaves a bit strangely. When you see the top view, it is clear that the constraint is fighting the natural motion, which makes it look a bit odd. Now let's try to constrain the rotation so that the cube can only swing around one axis. We'll have to set the condof attribute to 2 instead of 1, so that we constrain 2 degrees of freedom. But if we now play the simulation, you can see that the cube rotates only around the axis of the constraint, which isn't what we want. That is because when you set the condof to 2, the attribute condir specifies which axis should be unlocked instead of locked. So you just need to change the condir attribute to 001, which is the axis that we want our cube to swing around. Now, when I play the simulation, everything works as expected. In fact, we have just created a simple Hinge constraint from first principles without relying on the built-in one. By the way, I have intentionally set the same degrees of freedom for both anchors for each constraint. Try to experiment by setting different degrees of freedom for each individual anchor to find out how the behavior changes. The last thing I will show you today is how to make a bouncy, deformable ball with hard constraints. This setup is quite simple, and all you have to do is to instantiate rigid bodies in a spherical pattern, connect them with constraints based on topology of the sphere, and set constraint type to all instead of just positional. With constraint force mixing attribute, you can allow some violation of the constraint, and as side effect says in their documentation, make it more spongy. Understanding the constraint force mixing is way more advanced than the rest of this video, so if you excuse me, I won't go that rabbit hole today. Well, that would be all for this video. If you're interested in more videos about constraints where I might cover other types of constraints or even go deeper into hard constraints, please let me know in the comments below.